Ooh, I saw some of my write-up business cards in that box I need to get.
Yeah, I was looking for some last event. I need them.
No, I didn't have any. All right, 3.
Hi everyone, this is Brett Ridgway, and I'm here along with my good friend
Brian Ing.
and we are co-founders of Author 101 Online along with our good friend Rick Frischman. And we're here today to talk about 4 ways, at least 4 ways, that you can write a book without writing a book. Because remember, you want to be the author of a book, but you don't necessarily have to be the writer of the book. So, let's dive right into it, Brian. What's the first way that you can write a book without writing a book?
Well, there are many, but one of the ways that I love is if you happen to have a friend like I do and Brett here, you can actually have somebody interview you. Oh, I felt that. You can actually have somebody interview you. And if you don't have a good friend like I do and Brett, you could actually write out the questions, or even if you do have Brett, you may write out the questions for him anyway. You could write out the questions that you want to be asked. And if you're needing some inspiration on where to get some of these questions, hopefully you being the subject matter expert, you have a lot of the ideas, but if you need kind of a logical order to put them in, it's often good to go look at some of your competitors' books, maybe look at the table of contents that they have. You can do that on Amazon very easily, and it might give you some ideas of things to make sure you cover on a book that's clearly already made it in the market. But then you can have this person interview you. If they aren't very knowledgeable about it, then they're just asking you the questions and you're answering them, and you obviously want to record it via video or record it via audio, whichever you prefer. We're using, for instance, an iPad to record this right now, so obviously you can do that very easily. But then after you have it recorded, you can have somebody transcribe it quite easily, and then you can massage it together and edit it either yourself or you can hire an editor to do that. But interviews are a great way to do it, and if you're fortunate enough, like I am, to have somebody who's actually intelligent on the specific subject matter too, that's an even better interview, because then they may ask questions or think of things that you hadn't thought of as follow-up questions. They may even be able to give other input into it. And so I really love the interview approach. That's how Brett, Rick, and I all wrote a book, Mistakes Authors Make, that we drove to #1 in physical form on Amazon. That was a lot of fun. And we did that primarily via interview, via discussion, all on a webinar together, where it was just the 3 of us jumped on and recorded it, and that was a great way for us to do it.
Now, the second way that you can write a book without writing a book is very similar to the interview process, but let's face it, a lot of people are frankly overwhelmed by a blank computer screen or a blank piece of paper. So maybe a solution for you is to talk your book. Our good friend Rick Frischman, who we've already mentioned, pretty much that's how he gets most of his books done, is by talking his book. So simply, like we're doing here with an iPad or via GoToWebinar, you just need an audio USB microphone to hook up and just start talking, start rattling off what you know about your subject. Now, as with the interview process, it might be good to write down a bunch of questions so you have some kind of framework on what you want to cover.
Or an outline or something.
Or an outline, but then again have that transcribed, have it edited and cleaned up to form the basis of your book. So if you're overwhelmed by a blank sheet, talk your book. It's a great way to get your first book done. What's number 3?
I don't remember the exact order, but I'm going to go with collaboration.
Okay.
Because that's how we've done a lot of our books. And so, as we mentioned, we did, and we've collaborated a few different ways. Mistakes Authors Make, we collaborated with Rick Frischman on, and for that book, we actually, as I said, we all jumped onto a webinar together, although I don't know if we actually showed anything on the screen.
No.
But we all talked live into a recording where we said, okay, what are all the different things that we think are mistakes that authors make? And we just started listing different mistakes we've seen over the years, because collectively between us we have, what, 40, 50 years of publishing experience?
Damn, we're old.
Yeah, well, that's mainly Rick. But we just started listening to mistakes, and we started talking about what things we had seen over the years and how do you overcome them and different problems we'd seen. And the beautiful thing is, since we were recording it, we were then able to take some of those stories which we came up with on the fly at the moment, which maybe we had forgotten or hadn't talked about. And since we had them recorded, we were able to then put those into the book. And that makes a much more compelling book. So that was one way of doing collaboration. You have another recent book, ABCs of Speaking, that you did a little bit differently.
Yeah, and this was a book that I did with Adrian Ashley and Katarina Rando. And it was actually a combination of methods to create the book. I wrote a few chapters myself. Katarina wrote a few chapters. But Adrian was so busy that to get her content for the book, I actually interviewed her and then had that transcribed and rewrote to clean it up to form the basis of her contribution to the book. So more than one method went together to form that particular book. So there's more than one way to write a book, obviously. So I think collaboration is a great thing, and for a lot of people, maybe the way that you want to get started is collaborating by contributing a single chapter to a compilation book.
Sure.
So you're not ready to put together a full 150, 200-page book, but you can write a 10-page chapter or whatever on your area of expertise to get your name in print there, along with other authors, as a starting point only. We highly recommend you have multiple books, but if you're having trouble getting started, that can be a great way to actually get started.
Well, and another thing to remember when you're doing that is, since you're writing less, is let's take that approach, because another great way, and I think this is method number 4 now, to write your book is repurposing content that you've done in the past. So perhaps you've written blog posts, perhaps you've written articles on other people's blogs or your own, or in magazines or newspapers. Perhaps you've been interviewed on radio, perhaps you've done webinars or live training or whatever it may be. If you've got all this other content, you can actually repurpose that, reconfigure it, and form it into the basis of your book. And that's a great way. And the other thing that I love about repurposing is, as you're writing your book, you need to remember that you can actually take that book and repurpose that into something you're marketing. So you can actually take the different chapters or sections out of the chapter, and you can turn those into articles that you're publishing even before your book is released. And the beautiful thing is, by doing that, you're starting to grow a fan base of people who have read some of your articles and actually like what you're saying.
Sure.
And of course, you should make sure to collect their name and email address, so that when you do release the book, you can actually email them to promote it. So you're not starting from, a blank slate trying to sell your book. You've actually built up a list of people who like what you're saying. So repurposing is very powerful, and it's a two-way street on the repurposing, because you can repurpose it into a book, but you can also repurpose out of a book into your marketing.
Sure. So those are 4 methods to write a book without writing the book. I just thought of a 5th one. Ghostwriters. Maybe you are just so time overwhelmed that you can't even begin to think about writing a book actually yourself. Now, ghostwriters are still going to want to interview you and obviously collect information to get your perspective on a particular topic, but you can hire somebody to actually write your book for you. Again, you want to be the author. You don't necessarily have to be the writer. Now, ghostwriters are not inexpensive good ones. I mean, you're going to invest some serious money, but it can be a quicker way to get to market with a book if you're not prepared to do all the work yourself, essentially.
Sure. So let's recap those 5 ways.
All right, so number 1 was interview. Number 2, kind of different sign on that, was talk your book. Number 3 was a collaboration book, whether it's just 2 or 3 people collaborating or 15 or 20 people collaborating, each contributing a chapter. Number 4 was repurposing existing content that you have, whether it be articles or blog posts, and forming that as the basis of your book. And bonus number 5, hire a ghostwriter to actually do the writing for you.
Now, we hope you've enjoyed this video and found it useful, but if you're looking for a little bit more information, we're actually going to be doing a free webinar where we're going to spend 90 minutes. It's actually going to be Brett and Rick Frischman, 2 of them going together, and they're going to be teaching everything they know, including giving resources on, let's say, hey, how do I find a transcriptionist? We'll actually tell you some of the different transcriptions we use, as well as all the other resources we use. It's a free training. Just scroll down and sign up once again. And for everybody who signs up to attend this webinar, if you can't happen to make it, we will be giving a replay of the webinar later. But you need to sign up, so please scroll down, sign up for the free webinar, and we look forward to, and we'll be answering people's questions on the webinar. So
sure, ask away. Yeah. So we hope you'll be able to join us. Thanks so much for joining us today. Have a great week, and we will see you soon.
I think that's fine. And then we'll just need to remember when we say on the webinar that, hey, if we don't get to all your questions today, shoot us an email and we'll answer them later, so that if we do a replay of it,